the day we started rolling on set was when life really changed.
We'd never done a film before that had been to a big festival like that. It was Cannes, which was a big deal, so we were just over the moon. And then we went to TIFF, we went to BFI. We had such a phenomenal response in both of those cities as well.
कभी-कभी मुझे लगता है इसे मेरा अपना कुछ नहीं, सब कुछ या तो धार का है या चोरी का.
This is Silas from AsianCultureVulture.com. I'm talking to the brilliant Ali Junejo and Rasti Farooq. How did you come to be in Joyland?
I was called by our casting director to come for an audition, and I went for it, and I think I was the last one in line, so they had no choice.
I'd known Simon for a few years back in 2021, which is when he reached out to me. And because I'd worked with him before, I knew what an exceptional storyteller he is. And I was like, let's do it. Let's go for it.
Where did you find Haider? I mean, it's such a challenging part. And was there any trepidation when you got the role?
I had read the script when I auditioned and I really loved it. So I thought Simon did a beautiful job with the script. So I didn't have a choice because I was really obsessed by then and I really wanted to do it. There were a few relationships that I was thinking about that I think gave birth to what Haider turned out to be.
Sure.
And what kind of, I suppose, cloaks he doesn't have on when he's not with anybody. Yeah. So it was kind of a bit of self stuff, and then a bit of, you know, the relationship with his wife and the relationship with his father. I think those are the three things that I had to really think about to draw something.
I think it's a film about a kind of crisis of masculinity, what it is to be a man in modern Pakistan.
I think Haider is dealing with some really, really, really deep-seated questions, and he needs to find some semblance of an answer to these questions. And I'm afraid he doesn't have any answers. In Pakistani society, there's obviously, or rather in most societies, there's a system through which we expect men to be a certain way. And the same system is what dictates what everybody else's roles per se could be.
Theatre manager.
And I think the film, in some sense, maybe gently, just lets you think about it. It's not preachy in any way, and Haider wasn't meant to be preachy in any way. It's a gentle little opening for you to kind of think about, hey, is this okay? And this is the cost of this. So you want to maybe think about that, you know?
The script, I think, explores just like a crisis of masculinity, but like crises spread across all gender norms.
Right.
So
right.
It's like, what kind of women are we willing to accept? What kind of daughter-in-laws are we willing to accept? What kind of widowed men or women are we willing to accept? And we have, you know, Quadrasita or people from the trans community, what kind of trans community are we willing to accept? How can they be palatable for us, and how are they not? And anybody trying to kind of break through those very stringent structures suffers. And so this film explores a big group of people who fall under all of these various gender norms, and how they all suffer because of one expectation or the other, and them trying to like tussle with that expectation of what they want for their own lives.
The chemistry as you two as a couple in the film, I think, is terrific. Did you have much rehearsal time? Did you know each other before you started work?
We didn't know each other at all. I think both of us had heard about one another, and we were aware of the other's reputation in the theatre world. Both of us were nervous doing this together, and that specifically because of that very particular dynamic that they have in their marriage, and we really wanted to get that right. So it was we did rehearse it, but it wasn't so much, not like technically so, because I think we were just going over what they're like to one another, what they bring to one another, what they mean to each other, over like informal conversations outside of rehearsal space. So we just spoke about that to a great extent, and just so we could figure out all the parts of their relationship and piece it together.
I mean, it's a loving relationship, but yet there are obviously issues within that. But I don't want to give too much away, but it's how would you describe their relationship?
Like you said, it's very loving. And I think they have, from the very beginning, as you see, you know, near the end of the film, they are able to grasp what the other person needs from this relationship and needs from the other person, and then they pledge it to one another, and they continue that through the entirety of the relationship up until a particular point, when they're almost pitted against each other. They don't do it to one another. They're kind of, it's external things that kind of pit them. But I think the lovely thing about them is that, they are able to function within that very controlling, restrictive family environment and still allow one another to be the way that they want to be, to say the things that they want to say, to express themselves how they want, which I think is really lovely. That's not what you find in, well, most marriages anyway. I wouldn't even say like a marriage from that particular socioeconomic background. That just doesn't, that kind of openness to vulnerability and trust and care and love, it doesn't really exist, especially in an arranged marriage. So I think the fact that they just kind of from the beginning were able to like sow the seeds for that and trust that and just rely on that was really lovely.
Mumtaz ko ghar pe tawajjuh deni padegi, ghar rehna padega.
नहीं अब्बा, मुझे ज़रूरत की बात नहीं, मुझे शौक है, मैं इसलिए काम करती हूँ.
We had to find love, but there was something missing. And since we had already thought that we weren't going to have an ironclad answer to his questions, and it was more explorative, I think that lent itself to that space of grayness. And it's true. It's lovely that every character is kind of interacting with that space in some sense, is figuring themselves out in some way. I think it was quite heartbreaking, for me at least, to kind of to figure out how to find that dissonance within Haider.
Can you sort of give Mumtaz's perspective on where she is?
In the beginning of the film, she kind of has like a course charted out for her, right? So she knows what she wants from her life and she's pursuing it. And then she also prioritizes giving time and care towards her marriage, and she's also doing that. And then before she knows it, there's obstacles that crop up in every sphere of her life, and then she's asked to kind of take on a new personality almost. And how am I supposed to accept these new things or make them a part of myself? She begins to lose out on the support from Haider, right? Because he's on a different course, and all of us, for the first time in their married life, it's not the same course. They don't share it. She keeps a lot of it to herself as well. That is her defense mechanism. She doesn't want to share just how upset she is by all of this, or just how stripped she feels of all of this, or just how vulnerable she is. She hides that from Haider. She hides that from other members of the family. Having the film play, but then also getting to interact with people who've seen it, and then hear, what the film makes them feel or how they think about it, was really, really lovely. We have people from Pakistan watching it, going to the theater to watch a film like Joyland, which was so phenomenal. And we had so many people reach out to us after those screenings. Just, people were excited, people were kind of shocked, people in a good way, and also just moved by the film. And we'd seen that happen in like other parts of the world. So then to be able to share that experience with Pakistani people here was something else, really. And then it released in France, and it did really, really well in France. And now it's releasing in the UK, and like the UK has an even bigger population of brown people. So hopefully, and inshallah, it'll be even better.
Ali being the kind of lead character, and so much his journey is at the core of this film, and for you to get that kind of reaction and love and admiration, and it's a fantastic performance, I think, both of you. It's somewhat hard to believe that this is the first feature film, which is incredible. I mean, your life must have kind of been transformed by this experience. I don't know.
I think the day we started rolling on set was when life really changed, because what the story that we were committed to tell, and with the kind of heart we wanted to put into this story, and the fact that we were allowed to do that, and the fact that we were giving it everything, I think that's really when things changed. Because we didn't think that it would go. I mean, we're very lucky it's gone where it's gone. We didn't think that, because that wasn't the point. The point was telling the story of these characters. And so what happened is that as soon as we were done with it, there was this gloomy gray period where these characters were still kind of running around in there going like, well, now what? We were like, well, I don't know. And then at some point when this whole thing happened, when Khan happened and onwards, I think while sitting there, and I've said this I've said this to Rasti multiple times and Simon. I know that everybody on that set, us included, was working really, really hard. So in some way, I think there was this sense of like relief, and there was a sense of pride and just like peace that, you know, hard work still does something. All of this is coming out of hard work, then I'm game. I refuse to have imposter syndrome. I'm just going to keep charging forward, and we're going to take it as it comes. It was one of those
And
things.
now you've snagged like 2 Best Actor awards, so you really shouldn't have any imposter syndrome at all.
Some people would say it's still a slightly dark tale. I don't know. How would you get them across the line into the cinema?
You know, there's one way to find out what the film is about, and the only way to do that is to go and watch it. The film has been, I mean, alhamdulillah, it's been doing lovely things all over the world, and we're proud of it. You know, so when people watch it, if they just watch it with an open heart, they can see it for themselves. That this is a story, and this is a love story when it starts, and it's a love story when it ends, and it's about human beings like all of us in a society where, you know, we all still get by, we live, and we're okay, everything is fine. But there are these underlying questions and little things that they're dealing with that end up unwinding in front of you. So it's just worth looking at.
When I talked to Sadiq in Cannes, he was kind of ended with, there is some sense of hope even amongst the tragedy. It is a kind of tragedy, but there is also some optimism within that. There is something.
I found hope in bits and in little bits and bobs every now and then, because the story says a lot more than just the tale of these characters. There's snippets in the end of when you really find what it is that you can do if you let your body go, and if you let it go and you enjoy what you are in that moment. It's a fantastically, like, it's a hopeful, dreamlike place to be in. So there is that for sure.
Whatever tragedy there is in the film is linked to my character. So I spent a great deal of time thinking about this very question. And I think what I would like to say to audiences is just that, like, things like sadness or even anger, they can be generative in their own way. It's how you're telling that story is what's important. Now, Joyland is in no way cynical at all. It's the most sincere, gentle, and tender story out there. It may be sad by the end, but the fact is that it's like honestly and gently kind of really just kind of grabbing us by the shoulders and being like, do we want to change this? Is this what we want to be like? This is the cost of that humans pay because of, you know, what we're expected to do as a society, everybody included. So I think if people walk out of the cinema going like, oh gosh, that got a bit dark by the end, that's all right. You can stay with that sadness. And because this has happened to me every time I've seen this film, and I've seen it like, I don't know, 13, 14 times. It's happened to other people as well. You walk out with a feeling of sadness, but then you go like, hang on, that wasn't right, and that shouldn't have happened to those people. Or you go, hang on, do I do this to other people? Or I know somebody who's like this. And it's generative in that way, right? Because then you start thinking, or you ask yourself something, some set of questions. So I feel like that's a good place to be, and it's not cynical in any way.
What are you working on now? Are you going to be working with Sadiq again? What's the scene like for independent filmmaking in Pakistan? It's very exciting having Joyland come out into the world and thinking, is there more here?
We really hope that Simon and us can get back in and do something. The one thing that we are doing right now is we're doing a play. The play is called Both Sit in Silence for a While, and it's about this one evening where a couple is having a conversation, or rather like a debate about what to do in about their marriage.
That Ali has written, by the way.
It's a fun little two-hander that we're doing, and it's been getting good reviews, and people are having fun watching it. We're having a lot of fun doing it. So that's something we're doing immediately. I'm not sure what else is happening, but I think that the fact that Joyland has gotten where it has means a lot of other filmmakers that are now coming out of the woodwork are like, okay, fine, we can actually do this. And I think that seems to be the feeling around Pakistan right now. And so we're very excited to see what happens in independent film, and we're very excited to see where we go apart from theatre.
We have a particular kind of film setup here. And Joyland was like an anomaly in that. And we don't really get to see films like that come out of here. And we certainly don't think that they would be successful, you know, because we think, oh, a certain type of story is a hit in Pakistan, or, you know, XYZ actors make a film, you know, really successful, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it broke those conventions, quite a few of those conventions. And then it was really successful. So I think in that way, it's really been inspiring and hope-inducing for a lot of young people. That's what we've been hearing from them, you know, online or in personal messages as well. And it's really nice to hear that and to see that and to know that a film like Joyland has kind of, you know, breathed that life and hope back into our film industry.
Thank you so much for joining us on AsianCultureVulture.com. It was a fantastic conversation. Thanks.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.